Isiah here, Alex as usual, but we told y'all we were going to be bringing in guests. We've got the amazing LermyWermy with us today. We're going to be talking about some balance because we've got some balance coming to Smite 2 a little bit later today, which is exciting.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Yeah, doing great. We have a new loading screen, so we're suddenly much more professional.
I know, right?
Official.
Shout outs to Jesse from our art team on the amazing logo.
Yeah, I feel like it makes me look even balder than I am, but other than that, it's great. So,
sweet. Well, largely unscripted as usual, but I guess we can kick things off with a quick update on the Mulan poll that we talked about on Monday.
Yeah, great place to start.
Let's do it. Let me pull up the screen for the laptop. We told y'all we were keeping the poll open until today. We told y'all if Masked Warrior was up by at least 52%, that would be the base model for Mulan and Smite 2. And the poll ended. Masked Warrior is at 57%, so that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, so the default version of Mulan in Smite 2 will be the masked model. We're actually going to be changing her name as well, I believe, in addition to, as a result of what y'all said in a previous chat. So I think we're going to call her Hua Mulan instead of just Mulan. And then you'll still be able to use the classic Mulan as a free skin that you'll get. Yeah. The masked version will just be the default, and the mastery skins, Ascension skins, will be using the masked version.
Yeah. That's community feedback at work, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love this version of Mulan so much, so I'm honestly excited to see it in all of the colors and what they do with the opal and things like that.
The opal skin is my favorite.
That line is amazing.
Slick. All right, well, let's hop into talk about some of the balance that's coming out. We've been patching a lot. We've been cooking, Lermy.
Yeah, and like Lermy, I think it's part of this too. Like introducing to people like how you're going to be involved in this kind of live balance world that we're doing now. So.
Yeah. So something that I've been doing is I'm a part of the live hotfix team, I guess you could say,
and the
live patch team. And so what I'm doing is a lot of balance parts of that, but I'm also identifying, critical issues that players are running into, things that are frustrating too. So if you're running into bugs or things that don't feel right, or any of those other kind of tension points in the game, those are things that I will kind of evaluate and triage and then send off to the proper team to see, can we hotfix this? Is this something that we can fix for a patch within our normal cycle? And then we will see if we can fix it, and if we can fix it, we will evaluate how safe is that fix, can we integrate it ASAP, let's put it in, let's check it, and then let's release it
and let's ship it. We love it. All right, well, before you get into full patch notes, let's kind of talk about the theme of this balance patch, right, Lermy? So closed alpha 3 launched last week. Lots of changes to cooldown rate buffs in closed alpha 3. Turns out it was real good, right? So today's patch is going to be focused largely on scaling some of that back.
Yes, there's a couple other things in there too, but for the most part, you will be seeing a lot of cooldown reduction, nerfs, or shifts, and usually that is coming from the fact that in Smite 2, we don't have as many items as in Smite 1. That's just expected, right, from an alpha. However, the percentage of items that had cooldown reduction was significantly higher than it was in Smite 1, which is kind of incredible considering. So cooldown was way further spread out and also just way stronger. So in general, because we did a lot of those buffs in CA3, it kind of exposed that as being like, oh snap, like people can get like really high cooldown builds and kind of go crazy, which let me tell you, they're a lot of fun. So the goal of this series of balances is not to completely remove the fun from cooldown. We want a cooldown build to still be viable, to still be fun, but to be a little bit more niche, not as much, accessible through all kinds of different, items and paths and things like that. So to give you some numbers, because I know you guys like numbers, in Smite 2, we have 88 items. Out of those 88, we had 28 with cooldown on them. So, it's like a pretty solid chunk of them that have them. And, in comparison to Smite 1 that had approximately like 23% of the items, we were sitting at a little bit closer to that like 30-something% mark. So we wanted to bring it down by a significant margin. So we're taking that number of cooldown reduction items from 28 to 21. And then we're doing some adjustments across the board to the recipes, of course, because if you have cooldown in your tier 2, you would have cooldown in your tier 3. So that's going to change too. A lot of like really interesting balancing acts had to happen because, if we need to grab tier 2s from all over the place because we're not using the cooldown tier 2 anymore, like what stats even work for this item? And usually the choice for what items got their cooldown removed or cooldown nerfed had to do with thematically, does this item make sense to have cooldown? Does it seem like this is a cooldown based item, or is this an item that kind of does something else and has cooldown because cooldown's good?
Yeah.
Add cooldown. So a lot of it was judgment based on that. And of course, again, we still want cooldown to be good, to be fun, to be a viable pathway to go, just not so strong to the point where you have your ult up every 20 seconds, because that is a little bit crazy. Just a little bit.
And I think this is one of the things that we knew could happen when we uncapped cooldown in Smite 2, right? But a lot of Smite 2 is about putting fewer restrictions on you as a player and letting you experiment with this kind of stuff. And that also means, especially early on, we have to experiment with it too and find out, okay, how much is too much, right? We want you to be able to go super hard into cooldown reduction and have shorter ultimates and whatnot. But it's just you can't do that while also doing everything else in a perfect world.
Yes.
All right. Well, with that being said, I'll pull up patch notes. They're in my handy dandy Google Doc for right now. I was talking with Kabir earlier, and it looks like the goal is to get the patch out at some point today. He was thinking by 2 o'clock, so maybe even after the show is over, the patch will be live, and then we'll get patch notes up on Steam, social media, all that stuff. But let's talk about it now. So one god change in this update, Nua getting a nerf to clay soldiers.
Yes, this isn't actually so much of a nerf as it is a shift. What we're doing to Nua specifically is that her early game minion health is going down by half, essentially, in the base health, and then it's actually gaining some scaling. So if you're not building any health, you're getting to roughly the same spot as you were before, but if you want to go a little bit more flexible, tanky Nua, little solo lane Nua, and you want to build a lot of health, your minions will be really tanky. So this is mostly to address the, I guess, criticism that, hey man, I can't kill these Nua minions when they first spawn, especially because they're tanky, they're running at you, and they explode, when they get up to you. So you want some chance to be able to take them down. So taking down that early game especially is really important, and then the late game, giving you the choice to scale further into it if you want to, is a really fun alternative as well.
Full tank Nua with just extra tanky bodies running around. Guess it's a thing you could do.
All right, we're moving on to items now. Helm of Darkness up first for our cooldown.
Helm of Darkness actually doesn't have cooldown. This was just an underperforming item. That is cool in concept. It just had some weird stat distributions, right? Because it was really high in int and had a couple of little procs. 15 and 20, not too much, but also really expensive overall. And the effect, going invisible. Really sick, right?
Really strong, too.
Really strong effect. Just hard to find a good spot for. So we're evening out the stats across the board by bringing the int down by 30, but bringing both the prots up by 10, bringing the cost down by 100. We're hoping that this is just a better balance of stats on this item to make it more applicable to more people, because, if you want to go invisible, you kind of want to be in the middle of people, and if you're a mage, you want to do a lot of damage from kind of far away, but it's a difficult act to do when you're getting a little bit of prots. It doesn't really make a lot of sense on those full damage mages, so giving it a bit of that shift up to be a little bit more bruiser oriented makes a lot of sense for this item.
Like my solo lane Ares maybe.
Amaterasu really likes this item too.
It's feeling pretty good.
All right, now
we're talking about cooldown.
Kronos Pendant, the kind of marquee cooldown item, right?
So one thing that you'll see here is that there are 4 30 per, or not 30%, because that would be crazy, 30 cooldown rate. Let me make the distinct difference. And again, to kind of TLDR, the difference between cooldown reduction and cooldown rate is that we've uncapped cooldown rate in Smite 2. So what that means is that there's DR applied to it, which is diminishing returns. The more cooldown rate that you buy, the worse it gets, right? The less effective it is. So that's kind of the biggest difference between cooldown reduction and cooldown rate, is that if you get 40 cooldown rate, it's not 40% cooldown. You need about 60 cooldown rate to hit 40%. You need 100 cooldown rate to hit 50%. So what we're trying to do is essentially leave the super high cooldown items, super high cooldown, and make them a little bit less effective across the board. So if you want to go high cooldown, then that's your focus. You'll be able to do that. You just won't be as strong in other aspects.
Cool.
So that's the TLDR behind Kronos, at least.
All right, Breastplate of Valor. Really good item, too.
Yeah, kind of same idea, right, where cooldown is the main focus of this item, so we're taking the cost up by a little bit, taking the prots down by a little bit, and then dropping the cooldown rate. So again, the max cooldown rate that you're going to see across the board, we're taking it down from 30 to 25, so you don't have that easy, 2-item combo right off the bat to get that 40%.
Jotun's Revenge up next.
Another 30. I'm gonna confuse this so much.
Yeah.
So I apologize. Anytime that I say percent, I mean rate. Okay,
Yeah,
so just
30 rate,
take
yep,
that.
yeah.
Take that. 30 cooldown rate items are going to be getting a hit here again. So Jotun's Revenge is another one of those. This one's getting a small nerf because it really is the less popular one. You don't see a lot of full strength characters necessarily going in this direction, but this is a nice item to splash in those full strength, or even if you are a hybrid character too and you just want to load up on the 30 rate items, this was a great way to do it, of just literally let me put Kronos, Breastplate, Totem of Death, and Jotun's Revenge in my build on those hybrid characters, and you get a lot of cooldown. It was a lot of cooldown. It was a lot. So again, we're bringing down the max from 30 to 25 on what we put in terms of cooldown rate on items, and that one just got a small nerf.
And I see Chad is asking, why are we nerfing some of the base stats in addition to the cooldown rate? Do we think that it was also just giving too much strength or intelligence, or we kind of wanted to push the item a little bit further in one direction?
Yeah, so I guess the easiest way to explain it is that we want there to be some level of sacrifice when you're going these super extreme high cooldown builds, right? We were just seeing that it was too efficient across the board to not only get a lot of cooldown, but okay stats as well, right? They weren't good stats per se, but they were okay. They were average. We want them to be a little bit below average, not by much, but just enough to where you feel like, okay, I'm getting a lot of cooldown, and I'm getting some stats.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so that's the general guidepost there. Unfortunately for Totem of Death, though, that one is just an interesting item because it does give you the piercing effect, which is great. However, it's not the same level as those other iconic, ones that were previously 30 rate. So we're taking the cooldown rate down to 20 and not touching anything else about it because we were like, okay, this is not an iconic cooldown item.
Yeah.
So we're okay to bring it down, but we're not going to touch anything else about it.
Yeah. But an iconic cooldown item is Sands of Time, which is seeing a nerf as well.
Yeah, Sands of Time is very interesting because it's free in SMITE 2, right? Starters are free. So getting 20 free cooldown rate is a very strong thing to be getting, and I think people didn't recognize it in the early stages of the alphas and things of that nature because it is just like not as much extra damage as Conduit, and when you see the damage numbers pop up, you're like, yeah, but you really have to feel that cooldown rate to actually say, oh, okay, this is doing something, right? It's not as like immediately like, oh, I'm like 1-to-1ing, like that's what I'm picking up as extra damage from Conduit. So now that it's come on board, though, we see a lot of different kinds of characters getting it, whether that be supports, whether that be solo laners, whether that be mid laners, of course. So it's kind of across the board, unanimously
I think I saw
the better
Solar Troll build
right
Sands
now.
of Time starter over the weekend in esports. There's definitely some interesting stuff that you can do. All right, our next item is Leviathan Tide, getting a shift.
Yeah, so now we're kind of getting into items where we're removing the cooldown reduction, but we're giving other things back. So you're going to be seeing a lot of recipe changes. There's a lot of tier 2 items that have some really fun, interesting names, and even I have not fully gotten to grips of like, Legionnaire armor, that's the physical protection one. So like, bear with us here a little bit in terms of me being exactly correct with what these are. But you'll see that every tier 3 item has the components of their tier 2. So if the tier 2 has health and the tier 3 got health, that the tier 2 has health on it. So that's exactly what's happening here for Leviathan Tide. So we're shifting it from Captain's Ring plus Legionnaire Armor to be Veve Charm plus Legionnaire Armor. So cooldown gone, physical protection going down because again this item is very good, but and here's the big but, 300 health.
That's a lot of health.
It's a lot of health.
Yeah.
Yes, because Veve Charm is only health as a tier 2, and it has a lot of health too. So kind of have to give and take there, and it makes sense on an anti-basic attack item that you do want a little health. It's nice to have that extra health be spec'd into instead of fully committing to physical protection, in case you're against a soul or other magical basic attacker.
Yeah. All right, next up, one of our newer items, Lifebinder, getting a shift.
Yes, this has a really fun active, but we're not touching that today. What we're doing is we're taking the cooldown off, and we're also going to be shifting around the stats again. So Flaming Pearl is still staying as a component, but instead of Ring of Dispel, we're changing it to Olmec Blue, which is health and health regen. So what we're doing here is we are bringing the int up, we're bringing the health up, and then we're adding 3 health regen. So you are losing a good deal of cooldown reduction with this one, but you're getting some good regen back.
Yeah. Really good support item for this one,
Health regen is just really good early game, too.
Yeah.
So maybe an earlier choice in your build.
Yeah, especially because health regen is per second. So 3 health per second is not bad, especially if you're building into it across the board. It adds up over time, especially if you actually socket your build into a lot of these different regen items, getting 10 plus regen per second at some point is really good.
Yeah, that's really good.
I mean, in Smite 1, it was always HP 5 was the regen stat, right? So if this is 3 a second, then that's 15 HP 5.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of players, if they saw 15 HP 5, they'd be like, oh my God, that's busted.
Right,
yeah, that's pretty good.
Should we get
All right, Scepter of Dominion up next.
Yes, this is one that's been, talked about kind of briefly. Like, is this item super viable? Like, how good is this active really? So one thing we wanted to do with this is to really kind of push the stats to make it a little bit more available, to be focused around that really fun stasis active. So again, we're removing the cooldown reduction by taking Ring of Dispel out, and we're replacing it with Flaming Pearl, which is, I believe, int and mana, kind of the focus around that. So we've got increasing the int, increasing the mana, increasing mana regen, and then we've also got health from Flaming Pearl as well. So you'll love to see those kind of things come together on this, kind of tanky but like hybrid tanky item for int scalers, which has a really fun active.
Yeah.
Really fun active.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see some really cool clips with Scepter of Dominion.
Yeah, and I think we got feedback last show that the stasis text on this was confusing, right? So so we'll definitely take a look at the tooltip for that as well. Once that's probably more of a next major update thing for people that remember that. But because I did look in game, and the text for Aegis and the text for that are different. So we probably just need to get those to line up so it's clear what they do.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Soul Gem getting a shift as well.
This is an interesting one because with this, it's kind of paired with the next change, but this one is gaining cooldown rate. And so essentially, I was looking at this item and I was saying to myself, Soul Gem doesn't have cooldown rate, but it's an item that, you want to cast more abilities. You want to get those stacks up and then finally apply that big burst after the third, ability usage. So I'm like, okay, is there anything that I can swap this with? Does it make sense to am I like okay to put this on in a patch where we're pulling a lot of cooldown rate off? And so if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Bloodbound Book. So Bloodbound Book was one that had cooldown rate on it, and they're both lifesteal items. So I was like, okay, let's just do a little swap-a-rooney.
There we go.
So Bloodbound Book, which has an active that focuses around your health, now gives you health. And guess what? Soul Gem, the one that has a passive around cooldown, that gives you cooldown.
Makes sense.
Makes them, just theming things a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Shogun's Fuda up next.
Yes, this is a fun one. I love this item. It's just a very classic supportive, but you can also build it in solo lane. So this recipe is getting adjusted from Sage's Ring plus Hunter's Bow to Metal of Disruption plus Hunter's Bow. So no cooldown rate, but it's getting health. It has the attack speed. The attack speed is actually going up as well, which means, you get to attack even faster in lane. We've been seeing, not too many basic attack solo laners come through, so I would love to see this get picked up a little bit more on those guys, especially if they want to impact a late game with their auras. It's going to feel really nice on those guys, so we're hopefully giving you some more stats that you like between the health to make you a little bit tankier and the attack speed so that you can go into, a little bit more Chin's Blade, maybe a little bit. Braggy's Harp, anyone? Any of those?
I love Braggy's Harp, for sure.
Yeah, very, very fun time.
Seems pretty good for Balona and Amma in the solo lane. All right, Cersei's Hexstone up next, getting a shift.
Yes, this is actually a very big one.
This was the biggest drama, I think, in the internal designer chat.
We had a very big discussion about this one because initially we were going to fully pull the cooldown rate off of this item because, thematically, you turn into a pig. What does turning into a pig have to do with cooldown? Not that much. However,
pigs are speedy.
Pigs can be speedy. That's true. And speaking of speedy pigs, I want to jump to that 5th bullet point there, where we're decreasing the pre-fire time of the active of this ability, where you start, going pig mode by 75%. So instead of it feeling like, you're kind of pausing and then charging forward, you're just going to be zipping in there, and it feels so much better. Let me tell you, being able to use this item essentially like a dash, unless you have to kind of set up for it, feels really, really cool. You still are able to dash into people, knock one person up and they get stopped on them, so that's still a possibility, but the actual feeling of this active has improved so very much. And one other thing that we're doing is removing the movement speed, because we don't have movement speed on items anymore. Movement speed, I'm sure, as you guys know,
real good,
very strong stat.
Probably the best stat in the game.
Unironically, I was talking to one of the programmers, and they were like, what is like the stat that you want, like when you want to chase down someone? Like, I can imagine like you want to like kill them faster, so like more strength would be nice. And I'm like, it's movement speed. You just want more movement speed. Like, if you can stick on top of someone, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to kill them. If they can't run away from you, You'll get them.
Oh yeah,
you'll get them
eventually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I was after my baby was born a couple years ago. I was like a no life Smite Arena person because it's shorter games and easier for me to get in. And a lot of arena games I felt like came down to who builds the team movement speed aura items.
Yeah, it's really good.
If your team builds them and the other team doesn't, your team will win. So definitely a strong stat.
Yeah, shout out Talisman of Energy for that one.
Ooh,
that's the most underrated item in Smite 1, but we're not talking about Smite 1, we're talking about Smite 2.
Talking about Smite 2.
And Cersei's Hexstone is just one of those items that had movement speed from the time in the alphas where we had movement speed still as a stat. We're just pulling that off to make it more consistent, and we're keeping the stats hopefully still really applicable to those more tanky characters, but you can also build this on your junglers. You could build this on your carries even if you wanted to. If you're playing a tankier mid laner, it would work. It's just a really fun way to get in there or get out of there or whatever you have to do. Just go pig mode and go crazy with it.
All right, Necronomicon up next.
This item is really interesting because it theoretically has the highest intelligence in the game, but it's just so hard to get to that point and so expensive that it was prohibitively, not being bought for that reason. So because this had cooldown on it, we are going to pull the cooldown off of it because we're like, we can make the theming a little bit better, and it doesn't really need the cooldown reduction to be a successful item as long as we're making it more applicable, more approachable in terms of its cost. And also the passive reduction that you get. So essentially what you get from this item, for those that don't know, is it is a passive item where when you get a kill or assist, you get a stack, and that stack gives you 50 intelligence.
Yes.
It's a lot of intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
But it also removes protections from you. So what we're doing is we're making that detriment a little bit less, because if you're buying this on a squishy character that you want to just blow people up with, it's going to hurt a lot once you get to those stacks, once you get close to that 150 intelligence mark, which that's a lot of int, by the way. And it is, it's a fun item. It was just really hard to use when you were losing 60 prots.
Yeah, and I did just notice one question pop up. Are these notes available online? I haven't looked anywhere or logged in to find them. This is what will be going live in the next update, which should be later today or
hopefully within the hour.
Yeah. So this is the first time you're seeing them, and we will be posting them on all of our social media, I'm sure, as soon as it does go live.
I'm gonna go run and talk to Kabir right after the show and see where we're at with it, and get patch notes posted as soon as we can. We talked about Necronomicon. Spectral Armor up next.
Yeah, this is our last one for the shift, and again, our total is now going from 28 items with cooldown rate to 21. So we're removing from 7 and we're adjusting a bunch of other ones, but Spectral Armor is another one that thematically it didn't make a whole lot of sense to have this one. It's an anti-crit item, and it has cooldown because cooldown is good. So we're trying to make it a little bit less the case that, we need cooldown to make an item good. So instead of being built from Captain's Ring, it's going to be Legionnaire Armor plus Medal of Defense. So hopefully this also gives it a better power curve, because before it was building from just Captain's Ring, which means that the tier 2 to tier 3 spike was really big. It was like 1,300 gold. This should be a lot closer to like 750. I don't know if I'm doing my math correctly. Don't do math on podcast, but the power spike will be a lot easier to get into. You'll be able to build it a little bit easier, and then of course it gets some extra health on the end of it, which is helpful against those pesky auto attackers that are critting you.
Yeah. All right, and then I believe our last.
Oh, I thought that was it. I was gonna start talking about
Pharaoh's Curse. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. This is it this time. I just we're running through these really quickly, but I want to make sure that we're like hitting all of our points. So Ferris Curse. Last one for real this time. This one was building from Captain's Ring plus Hunter Bow. This time it's going to be from Engraved Guard plus Hunter's Bow. And Ferris Curse is a really interesting active item because it's essentially very close to what Horrific Emblem was in Smite 1, but it's on this like really great stat stick. So the cooldown reduction or cooldown rate is gone, and we're going to be adding magical protection because Engraved Guard is a really cool item because it has both physical and magical protection. So Ferris Curse already had the physical, now it's got the magical too. You can kind of build this against anybody and not have to worry, I can't go my curse item if I'm against magicals. Well, now it doesn't matter. You can go against either of them.
Yep. All right, that is it for patch notes. Beefy patch, right? Lots of changes.
They're not usually going to be this big when it comes to the balance of things. This just happened to be really big because we noticed there was a problem and we wanted to act on the overarching problem versus just kind of pick and choose a couple of them. So we hope that you guys are still really excited to try cooldown reduction, cooldown rate. It's gonna take a bit.
It's a learned habit,
Yeah, 10 plus years of saying cooldown reduction. It's cooldown rate now.
We can
cooldown
just
rate.
Still say CDR.
CDR,
Yeah,
there you
CDR.
go. Yeah.
it's still going to be really fun to be building those CDR items in the really like heavily niched out ones that you want to get them on, and then it'll be a little bit less spread out, but we're hoping that those items that did previously have CDR on them, that you're still going to love trying them, and that a lot of them have new interesting gateways for you to open the doors with and try them out.
Yeah, and I think this is just another example of us being more willing to update more frequently in the middle of an update, right?
Yeah.
So this is our second balance patch since the major update went live on Thursday of last week. And we'll probably have another balance pass later this week, with some other changes. Again, it might not be as big as this, but when we see things are not fun to play against, we want to try and address them more quickly so you're not stuck playing in something that's not fun for another 3 weeks.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was all I had for prep work. Let's do some Q&A.
Yeah, sure. I see one question that popped up here. Can you guys fix Umoja's 1 to work with QuickCast? We were literally talking about this in Slack right before I got on the show. So there's an issue where gods with multi-phase abilities, so like Susanoo 1, Umoja, and there was one other example I can't remember right now, don't inherit the correct type of casting. So that's a known issue. We're looking into fixing it to make sure that it works for all the different versions. Oh, I think it's Hecate 1.
Oh, Hecate 1. I can imagine also might happen with like Mordred as well.
So we know that that's an issue. We're looking to address that. But I appreciate you bringing it up. I will also mention we've had both of the first 2 shows. A chatter brought up an issue with being able to party in groups larger than 4 on PlayStation. We appreciate you bringing that up because it turns out that was a really weird niche edge case that required 5 PlayStation accounts to be trying to play together. Because you brought it up, we were able to track it down, and that should be fixed now. So if you cannot party with 5 people on PlayStation who are all PlayStation players, please let us know. But that should be fixed now.
Get
so
those
thank you.
5 stacks going.
Yes.
If you don't mind, there's a question. Can you fix Anubis? He literally 1v5s people in Conquest. Anubis is on my list of people to be looking at for the next balance
later
update.
this
So
week,
we've definitely been seeing Anubis performing really well. He was not performing well at all in our competitive play over the weekend. So that was another reason why we kind of took our time with that one. We really wanted to see that the stats were showing up that yes, he is doing really well in casuals and even in ranked. So we do now have those stats. He is performing very well. So we will be taking action on him at a later time.
All right. Let's see. Taking some questions here. I see a question about Color Forge being looked into for Smite 2.
It's so cool.
Color Forge is a great mechanic from Smite 1. I think it's something that we are interested in looking at for Smite 2 eventually, but it is a new piece of tech that we would have to build out. I think, again, our focus right now is let's make the core game great, and then we'll worry about trying to sell stuff later. So it's been discussed, but it's not like we're going to do it tomorrow or anything.
All right.
When will we get mixed casting types for individual gods? You can do it right now.
You can, right now.
If you go into your settings menu, I believe it's under gameplay, you'll be able to see there is a global and then an ability 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those like 1, 2, 3, and 4, they do not stay for every single god. You can go individually to Hades or Zeus or whoever you're playing and switch those up every single time that you switch a god, and then those will stay on those individual gods, and they will be different across the board for if you want to use your 1 on instant and your 2 on quick and your 3 on normal. You can do that individually for every single god. So that exists.
Is it intended change that the first pick ban is no longer top SR in ranked lobbies? No, that's not intended. We actually tried to get that into this most recent update, CA3, but it doesn't quite work all the time. We are aware that that's an issue, and we will be fixing that hopefully for the next update.
So many questions in chat.
Yeah, the chat's moving quick today, which is awesome.
It's show's gotten too popular.
People are tuning in. Yeah, we got to find a better way to sort through these questions.
Buff Zeus one more time. Zeus is another god that I have on my list to further assess. Anubis we have confirmed. I will say Zeus is still on the docket for needs more info. So he is at least being considered right now, but we don't have a 100% that we want to do some action on him or just wait for longer.
I see a question. Any thoughts about making buffs spawn earlier in Conquest? Currently, it feels really inconsistent to get level 2 off the first wave in solo because you miss too many minions.
It's definitely a very interesting topic because I know this was brought up internally a couple times because in Smite 1, you hit 2 before even going to the lane a lot of times because of the way that you can drag the camps and because, you know, the various XP and gold values. And players are really used to that, and some players really like that. We are still like mid trying this new feeling out, and it's totally understandable that, you know, sometimes depending on the character and your clear being weaker or stronger, you might not get to lane on time to hit level 2. It's a little bit inconsistent. It just depends on, you know, those specific characters. We're hoping that we can still continue to test out this iteration a little bit longer, but we're totally open to adjusting it if it's something that you guys really like. You know, you missed that level 2 or you want more consistency there. In more ways than one, we can adjust to hopefully give more of that while still, you know, testing out different ways.
I will say also, people say, there's a couple people both that brought up camp dragging. Yeah. They're like, is it coming back? Is it coming back? I think the problem with camp dragging is that it kind of, to some extent, trivializes the role of the jungler and removes their purpose on the map. So it's definitely a fun thing. It speeds up the start in Smite 1. But I think we're trying to make sure that the jungler has a more distinct role right now, so probably not going to come back soon. Something could come back at any time, you know, like we're not 100% committed to anything. We hope that Smite 2 will run for years and years and years, and we'll eventually try everything probably. But for right now, I think it's probably better for the meta to not have dragon camps.
I think at least personally, just like the way the jungle is set up right now makes it a little bit inconvenient to have like fully unleashed camps, mostly because there's just not enough stuff for the jungler to do if that wasn't the case. Like if you could group things together, it also kind of changes how starts interact, right? Because we just talked about hitting level 2. If you can pull those camps together, the starts do change a lot, but then it's also the entire jungle is down. And that's something that happens a lot in Smite 1 is when your entire jungle is down, you gank. And so we saw a lot of early, you know, cringe ganks
the level 2 duo
over in
ganks.
duo or over in solo. So things like that, making those buff timers really predictable is something that happens there. So invading is really good in that regard. It's also pretty good in Smite 2, but one really interesting thing that kind of mixes that up is the rotating buff camps around mid and around the side lane. So it is really helpful to have like some amount of randomness in there to make the start shift up a lot, and I feel like that wouldn't be as potent as it is as like this kind of mix-up tool if it was, you know, unleashed camps, because then again you just get back into that super efficiency state of I clear everything, I go gank. Now you have to do a little bit more of like that paced out early game rotation.
So I'll question, will the next update, the one with the 2 new gods, be in 2 weeks like last time or 3 weeks like usual?
So I think the answer is when it's ready, because we're trying to be more proactive. And once we think everything that we wanted to get into an update is done and locked in a good state, then we'll just ship it out to y'all. I would expect that, you know, we're still at least 2 weeks out from when it could be done, I would assume, because you know, the update wasn't even supposed to go live until Tuesday.
Right,
so until yesterday. So at least, you know, it was supposed to be 3 weeks from yesterday was the initial schedule. But I would say, we'll just keep an eye out for it. There will be 2 gods in the next update. And then
Danzaburro's one.
Danzaburro's one. And then we will be increasing our pace of gods after that. Actually, we're already increased internally, but you just won't see it.
Right, I was watching the playtest this today, and I saw so many characters. Oh, my goodness.
I do want to comment a little bit on that, because I've been, you know, experiencing a little bit of, like, learning this pipeline, working on gods myself. So it's been very awesome to see just so many new gods, like, come to life at one time. It's been really fun to, like, feel the roster getting bigger, right? And seeing all of these familiar faces and then going, oh, they do that now? Or, oh, they work like this now? Or, oh, they look like that now? It's a very exciting experience as a longtime fan, being able to see all of this stuff get transferred into UE5 and, like, really revitalized and given, like, a really fun new coat of paint, new way to play them. It's been very awesome.
I see a question about better spectator cam and maybe free cam. I know Team has been doing a lot of spectator work. If you watched esports over this past weekend, you probably saw a lot of the progress that the team has been making. Doug is in every single playtest that the team is doing, spectating, giving feedback, saying, hey, this doesn't feel quite right. This is what I'm looking for to have a similar experience to when I was spectating in Smite 1. So I know the team is really focused on spectator, especially since we've got the big event in January.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've kind of shifted in our process to make development easier, or not easier, but just clearer, I guess is the right way to say it, because development's hard, is that every feature now has an oak as our great leader Travis likes to call it. And an oak is short for one ass to kick. One person who is in charge of and responsible for that feature and making sure it turns out awesome. So the oak on Spectator is Ro, who many of you know, designer who spent many years on the esports side as a pro coach. And
if anyone's going to know how to do it, it's going to be a coach,
Oh,
right?
yeah, sure.
So he is the oak on Spectator. We also have 2 programmers that are working on it on the various sides, both gameplay and UI. So the goal is to continue to get that into a better and better state. And hopefully, before too long, it'll be really good.
Let's see here. I see a lot of people asking for God spoilers.
Yeah, so I think I want to address that real quick. So our guest on Friday is currently penciled in to be Ben, who is our art director.
Yes.
And Ben is going to be showing a lot of concept art and work in progress for upcoming gods. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the upcoming gods on Friday. So be sure to tune into Friday's show if you want to see the work in progress art, if you want to talk about the upcoming gods.
He's going to have so much eye candy. It's going to be a great show on Friday.
Yeah, that's going to be one to definitely not miss, because we've been getting a lot of those passed by some of the really big Smite fans internally, just to be like, what do you guys think of this? Do you guys like this direction? We've all just been going unanimously, yes, more of this. Give us more of this really exciting, changes to models and art and icons and all of those good things that you guys have been seeing for the gods already released is happening behind the scenes for all of the gods still in progress.
Yeah, should be cool. Multiple people now are spamming any thoughts for Zeus's one to bounce between himself and enemy gods and chain lightning is useless in the 1v1.
So we've seen this suggestion on Reddit. We've seen it in Twitch chats before. It's something that we have thought about, and we are not fully against it. We would need to do a not insignificant amount of blueprinting work to prototype it, and the concern is that, does this bounce back to himself do anything, right? Because if you're bouncing back to yourself, how does that look? How does that interact with his charges? Do you get a charge? Those kind of interactions could pop up, and we would need to fix those, right? Or we need to make them do something purposefully. Maybe your charges give you a stat when you detonate them on yourself or something like that, right? So for us to do that, we need to do a little bit more digging into what that could look like, what kind of bugs that creates, what kind of, situations we need to design for, because, unfortunately, I was not the one that worked on Zeus, so I can't, say specifically how that stuff was set up. I've looked at it very briefly, to reference and work on other things, but there are lots of situations that pop up from doing something like that we need to design around. So it's not something that we can just, snap and, do it, make it happen. It would need to go through, a pretty vigorous, bug test to make sure that his charges aren't affecting anything or breaking anything, crashing the game, etc. It's got to have a very clear purpose for doing that. It's got to have clear visuals, and it's got to have a clear, something that it does for Zeus himself.
All right. I've seen a couple questions about will we do major god updates / reworks for characters that we think we need it. I know we talked about Nox earlier this week. Freya was mentioned in chat.
So Freya, we've tried to rework and people hated it. I think that the issue with a lot of these reworks, and it kind of goes back into something we talked about on Friday, that people love the version of the god that they have played for a long time. And more so than even maybe some other MOBAs, Smite players are really committed to that version of a god. And anytime we have ever changed something substantial about a god's core playstyle, people just have not enjoyed it. I think the only god that we've kind of gotten away with on it was Loki.
Yeah.
And that's just because so many people hated playing against Loki that it was okay. But for every other god that we've tried to change something, I still get spammed revert Persephone,
Yeah.
And maybe we should. That's a Smite 2 question at this point. They'll decide what they're going to do with it. But I think for us, the correct answer for a lot of these characters is what's holding them back from being successful, and how do we add a +1 that makes them more fun to play, that lets them fill the niche that they're not filling right now, versus how do we completely rework their identity? Right? Yeah. I think kind of going back to what I was joking about last week too, Nox is the probably the other most annoying god to play against in Smite. So would probably be the biggest candidate for somebody that needs a bigger rework, because it's not like she's annoying to play, she's annoying to play against in the same way that Loki was. But even still, we have to be really careful with that, not to lose the core identity of Nox, which is a kind of annoying character.
Yeah, let me tell you that.
Yeah.
I queue up and I play Nox, dude. You know, if I'm having a bad day and I'm like, I need to feel good, I'm gonna play Nox. I know someone else is gonna have a bad day too.
No, but that's what the character is, right?
Yeah,
it's like
right? No,
you're locked down and
it
you
is
just
really
you just
funny.
stand there until you die. It's great. It's awful.
It's great and it's awful.
Yeah. But so I think that's something, you know, even if we were going to do a full rework, we would want to make sure that like it's still a character that speaks to Nox players, and it's going to be kind of a troll character that, you know, has its pros and cons.
Yeah, I definitely think Nox is going to be a big challenge for us. Persephone as well, I think will bring a lot of you know, questions as to, you know, how do we still keep the essence of these characters feeling identifiable to Smite 1? These are the Smite 1 characters you know and love, but, you know, they feel better, they have clear improvements, they have some new thing for you to try with them that makes you want to give them another go.
Yeah, and Nox and Persephone are both not in the first 50.
Yes.
In part because of those questions, right?
For sure.
Like, I think that when we get to them, we want to make sure that we have the time to really take a hard look at their kits and make big updates if they need it. Whereas most of the gods in the first 50, they're all getting +1s, but they're gods that have strong existing kits that work pretty well, in our opinions. So they don't need huge overhauls in order to go into Smite 2.
Good question for Lermy here. Thoughts on bringing back protection aura items, but making them more of a high-cost luxury item for supports?
It's really tough, right? Because we just had a meta where Thebes was incredibly good, and that's like the one like outstanding protection aura item that still exists, and you know, it was just really efficient. The problem is that you have to kind of balance how you help your teams and how you help yourself as a support. And there's not an easy way to do that, especially because supports just across the board get less gold than everybody else because they're sharing so much they can't really clear for themselves. That's just how it is. It's very difficult to get that aura protection back without breaking it in some way, you know what I mean? Because either you feel bad or your team feels bad, and then kind of you'd rather have any other item. You'd rather have Talisman. You'd rather have Providence. I was trying to think of like the two like most purchased items kind of in that similar slot that, you know, you used to see like Sovereignty, Heart Ward done in Smite 1. I think, at least to me, I am more personally excited by seeing these new really cool active items shine.
That's what I was going to say. I love the approach to your active support, where he's got 3 active items, all for team play and support.
And that feels really great.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but another thing that we found over the years is that the thing that players feel the power of the least is passive auras. Right? Passive auras are incredibly powerful. They can make huge differences in team fights. But if you ask a player, did you feel the impact of it? They say no. And one of the worst things from a game design perspective is to do something that has a lot of power but doesn't feel like it has a lot of power. So even like if we were to have a, you know, an item that was kind of like Kepri passive, where it gave you a visible shield, that would probably be a better solution than having like passive aura items that just give you stats that you can't feel as much.
I mean, we just saw this on the Fire Giant buff where like, you know, in the past, Fire Giant has been a lot offensive focused, but in Smite 2, at least at the beginning, it had protections on it. And then people are like, man,
no, I don't like this.
These Fire Giant guys are real tanky. They're not dying like really at all. And then we, you know, went to look and assess, and like a lot of the pro players provided feedback like, hey, it probably shouldn't have prots. And like, we're like, oh yeah, like you don't really notice the prots, but they do impact fights a lot, especially on the squishies where, you know, just due to how the protection formula works, the less protections that you have when you add protections onto it, the more effective that they are. So for those squishies that are getting those like solid chunk of prots, you're getting significantly tankier compared to what you were previously, and that was really impacting how, I guess, snowbally, for lack of a better term, getting the Fire Giant would be at that stage.
I want to address one question that popped up a couple times, which is people that are unable to claim certain Ascension Pass levels. So there is a known bug right now where your client can get into a weird state where basically things happen out of order and you don't get the right hidden coupon that you need to be able to unlock a level and to claim your rewards. We know that a lot of people are in this state right now. We're sorry about it. Our DB team, the database, is looking at how they can address this. And we're probably going to be going in and running a script later this week to allow people to claim rewards that they couldn't claim. Very sorry about that, but it is a known issue. So sorry about that.
saw a question. Will we be bringing back holding down right on the D-pad manually to ping the mini-map on console?
I want that to come back.
Yeah.
I think it's something we discussed. I don't know if it's on the list quite now, but we can follow up about that.
No, yeah, that's good feedback.
And
more of that stuff, the small things, right, are the things that we want to make sure that we include.
Yeah. There was another console one, too, that this guy keeps posting, or I'm assuming his gender. But it says, I am a console player that plays with keyboard and mouse. There still isn't a cursor for in-game to navigate the item shop or ping minimap. And will there be functionality to navigate the main menu? So it's definitely not something that we fully support yet, but it's something that we think we can add without too much work. So it's on the radar as something that people are requesting. Probably not coming in the next update or anything, but something we're scoping out.
Mm-hmm.
Can we please bring back the report button for harassment and bad behavior? So I know you can report in-game.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's in the end of match lobby yet.
I think it is. I've definitely seen it. It's a little bit less obvious than it is in Smite 1, and that's just something that we'll be working on as we continue to do further passes on that part of the UI. But it is, I think, in the second tab. I'm not sure if that's the scoreboard tab or whatever it is called specifically, but that's the one that shows you all the items and all the gods, the kills, assists, and all that stuff. On the right side of that, there is like a little button there. I think it's like the triple dots. You open that, there's a report there. You can report through there. It has a place for you to type all of your details and things like that. And I will say, just as a general heads up, if you really think that there was something bad that happened in the game that you were in, please use that place to type out what actually happened, because that helps us out so much more in actually evaluating what happened versus I just put harassment and press submit, because then it's a little bit more what actually went down.
Veneda has posted a couple of times. You can't go invisible in Nua's circle with certain skins. That's not a bug I'm aware of. If there are specific skins that are you aware of that one?
I've heard it. I don't know exactly, so I could be wrong. I think this is only local to the person in the fog that looks like this. I think that to enemies, they still are invisible.
Okay.
But it looks on your end like the Radiant skin, for instance, is one where like
shadow
it has
skins
some
is what they're saying.
material stuff that happens over top of it, and so that just gets removed when you jump in there and you look like normal. But from my understanding, and I could be wrong, we're going to do further investigation on this, of course, because we got you.
Yes.
I think that it is just removing that. You are still invisible from enemy clients, and it's not making you not invisible at all. That's my understanding, but we'll do more investigation on that.
Probably just a visual bug. Yep. So, but thanks for calling that out. Any very specific bugs we love hearing about on this show or just in general, because it lets us go find out what's going wrong and we can fix it.
Any chance either percent pin or flat pin could be renamed? When I was new, it was confusing because a little easily missed a percent sign could make a world of difference in effectiveness. Yeah,
well, at least right now we don't have flat pen in the item store. The only thing that has flat pen, well, the only things I should say are the stacking items between Transcendent, Book of Thoth, and Devourer's Gauntlet. And we're still kind of internally discussing, this kind of like flat pen issue to give it a name. Yeah. Like, should we re-add flat pen? Because we've obviously seen that these items are very strong, very popular for that reason, because flat pen is just an incredibly powerful stat across the board. So I think if we get to a point where we're actually getting flat pen on more items and you see it as, flat pen, it's something that we can consider. As for right now, I'm not sure that it specifically needs it, but it's understandable that it would be confusing, and I completely see that perspective where, you miss the percent sign, you just see a number and you're like, oh, it does this, and it doesn't actually do that, it does something else. So I definitely understand the confusion, and it's something that we'll revisit as we're having more of that penetration conversation.
Yeah. I've seen a couple people post about Balona's auto attacks feeling clunky. Currently, what we've heard is that Balona in particular has some of her attacks feel a little clunky, and like her one animation maybe. And also on her Impale and maybe basic attacks feel a little clunky. But most everything else seems like it feels pretty good to people. A couple people said maybe Chalk's autos feel a little not heavy enough. Yeah. But I think those are kind of the three gods that we know maybe aren't hitting the mark right now, more so than others. So if we're aware of it, we're looking into it. Not going to be fixed tomorrow or anything because that's kind of a big animation ask. But we're definitely looking into those.
Team Cobble says it's the animation speed, so maybe that's something that we could take back to the team.
Yeah, I know we've definitely kept eyes on those animations because those are animations that are different from Smite 1 in some ways. You know, they take the essence of what we did in Smite 1, but maybe they have like a slower in and faster out, or you know, some other kind of modulation on the speed to make it feel more weighted in a specific way. And one thing that we've learned kind of going through this process is that is one thing that players notice really fast, really immediately, is that if they don't get to a certain part of the animation by a certain time in the ability, they're like, I feel so slow, or I feel so fast, or
and it can
like
be
that.
a frame different, you know, but if you've played the god a lot, it feels so much slower to you. So
cool. And even if it's not slower, right? Even if the ability is exactly the same, but the animation is a little bit different, that's also come up where it's like, I feel slow. And we as designers go, here are the numbers in Smite 1. Here are the numbers in Smite 2. They're exactly the same. And then we go, okay, we need to see what else is happening here. Is there any other, you know, piece of the pie that makes this, you know, feel the way that it does? And animation comes up sometimes. FX comes up sometimes. Sound sometimes comes up as well, where, like, if the sound is not properly timed, you know, in parts of the animation, like, you know, just to use Balona as an example, because we were talking about her, Balona does a really big swing, right? And so making sure that swinging sound is timed very similarly, if not perfectly, to Smite 1 to make that swing feel and have the same exact weight as it did in Smite 1. The smallest bit of difference between them can make a huge impact on how you feel playing that character.
One potential bug report here. So at recent patch, at times I've had times where the sound gets slightly muted at random times. Is this a known bug? This is a known bug, but we are still tracking down the exact cause of it. We're looking at a lot of different things that could be affecting it. If you've noticed any consistencies as to what causes that to happen in your matches, that could help us track down exactly what the cause is, because we have a couple leads that we're investigating. The audio team's on it, but any more information is definitely helpful on that one.
I saw a good question that I don't want to skip. How does the dev pipeline work? Does one god get finished before the other? Would it be possible to add a god outside of the normal 3-week update cycle?
Oh man, the god pipeline is really complicated.
Do you have 3 hours?
I know, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one to break down. I will kind of answer the question, I guess, to not go into like all of the different phases, to say that we are doing multiple gods at the same time. I mean, like in the past couple playtests, we've had like 8 new gods get tested at the same time or something like that. So of course, gods don't get done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever the time is. We're not doing Yamoja and Baron are done. It's time to work on the 2 for the next patch. They've been worked on for several months at this point. So, you know, we have a lot going on at a time. We have different people on different gods doing different things. Some people on multiple gods. You know, like animators have to bounce around a lot. Programmers have to bounce around a lot just to make sure that we're getting all this stuff on track. And they're just amazing for that, honestly. Like, I have so much respect to people that are able to, like, do that multitasking so well. I'm the kind of person that I feel like I need to, like, put my head down and grind on one thing and, like, stay super focused on it. But those people that are, like, really good at maintaining this, like, you know, huge amount of gods that we're trying to pump into the free-to-play update coming in the future is going to be incredible. I just, every day, am so impressed by the work that they do.
I've seen the same person ask about clans 6 times.
I think it's either 2 people or it's a person with a puppet account. So clans is an interesting system from Smite 1 that I think there are pros and cons to it. The single biggest positive of it is it enables a community to have a shared chat channel and be able to, like, coordinate with each other. We don't have chat yet. So I feel like until we have chat, the value of clans is relatively limited in Smite 2, other than just a way for us to give away more free stuff. And we can be giving away free stuff in other ways until then. I think I like the idea of having a way for a community chat channel. I don't know if it's as necessary in 2024 as it was when Smite 1 first launched, because nowadays pretty much everybody has a Discord for their clan or whatever,
their community,
right? So I think it's a less important system nowadays than it was back then. It's definitely something that, you know, is beloved to a lot of Smite 1 players. something that we can consider for the future, but it would be a very distant future thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even now we have call-outs to, join the Smite Discord, join the Reddit, join, Twitter engagement, hop on and watch some esports. Like, I think one thing that we can do in that regard, though, is continue to guide people to participate in the community outside of the game itself, because you don't have to play to still be a fan of Smite. And that's the important part, just, being there and being involved with the community is so much fun. Even if you're not spending all that time playing, just watching,
even just chatting with
chilling,
people.
just having fun discussions about,
sharing memes.
I think Shoal should have this on there, whatever it is. Just like having all of these different discussions is such an awesome way to engage with people and make lifelong friends too. Can I say
absolutely.
that? Like some of the people that I work with today are people that I have known for like 10 years at this point. Like it's unbelievable that the kinds of connections that you can make in a community like Smite has. So I highly, suggest, if you haven't already, but I imagine if you're in Twitch chat watching right now, you probably are, but keep being involved in those things because it's what keeps this community feeling so alive like it is right now.
I'm going to call out one question here because it is a silly one, but points to the difficulties of game development. Please remember to make those widgets in the client clickable instead of just providing a scannable QR code.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that is a surprising amount of work to make happen. It seems like it would be really easy, but making it either go to a specific place in the client that you have to tag specifically or go to a separate out-of-game application to launch a URL or something, and working on console and on PC is actually a surprisingly difficult thing to do. It's on our list to do because we know that it should be there. But the past few Hi-Rez games didn't ever have this feature because it was too much work for them. But we know it's something we need to get to. So.
I have a fun one.
Go for it.
Take it.
We have a all caps post here. Susanoo, Amaterasu, buff, Anubis, Loki, Ymir, nerf. What I will say is that Susanoo just got a nerf earlier in the week.
Yep.
He did receive a hotfix nerf, and then Amaterasu is a character that's had a bit of trouble over the past week or so with a pretty nasty bug that we've been working through, and I think is somewhat resolved right now, but we still have some people keeping eyes on it to make sure that we're fully resolving it. So her stats have been a little inflated, to say the least. We kind of have to wait a little bit to make sure that we're getting, good data, to be able to make further judgment on what she needs. As for Anubis, we got Anubis on the list. Loki is kind of, middle of the pack right now. He's doing pretty standard, so we're keeping eyes on him, of course, but Ymir is another, standout, very, very good tank. You see him prioritized a lot in the, league over the weekends, which has been great to see. So Ymir is one that we're keeping our eyes on, but kind of same as Loki, middle of the pack. We don't want to nerf tanks too hard because, again, that's just someone that got really heavily impacted by a lot of these cooldown changes as well. So we're going to keep an eye on tanks in general before we move forward with nerfing any further tanks.
2 quick hits. Did the Worshipper formula change? Smite 2 seems lower. No, it is the same formula, but there are no Worshipper boosters in Smite 2 is the single biggest thing, because Worshipper boosters would dramatically increase your progress. I think we have realized that perhaps the earn rate is too low without boosters, and boosters aren't going to be coming for the near term at least. So that's something that we're aware of and we're looking into. The other one, Kaisa Supremacy has posted a lot of times, can you fix people who have their accounts linked correctly, but their progress isn't being ported into Smite 2? If that is happening to you, please contact our support team. It should be working. There should only be a handful of people that are in a bad state that need to be fixed. If you do need to be fixed, you need to contact our support team and they'll get you fixed up.
Yeah, I think in general, when it comes to, bug reports and things that are affecting your account and your, items, your customizable things for your account, those are things that should go to our customer support team. And when it's more like gameplay things or client things or, those general types of, animation or FX bugs, that can go to the various bug channels that we have, whether it be the forum, whether it be Reddit, whether it be Discord is another good place to do it, or to an ambassador that sees it as well. So any of those places are good for those things. If it's something wrong with your individual account, your any of those things that you earn, that goes to customer support.
The hard-hitting questions. Can the next item's art be a fish?
We've already got one with crab,
we're halfway there. There was another one here about adding countdown pings and sounds to picks and bans. What's the time frame on this getting fixed? Something we're aware of. I think the audio team is doing that right now. And then the other thing that we're working on right now that I believe is in and should be in for the next major update, so in 3 weeks' time or so.
Cross your fingers.
Cross your fingers, yeah. Like most things we say on the show, not 100% promise, but we're planning on it at least, is the out of game. If you're alt-tabbed, you'll still get a notification.
Oh my God.
So that is something we know that people miss, and it should be there for the next update.
Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Does that work for invites as well? Do we have that on our docket?
We'll have to ask Dale. Yeah, Dale is the person who did it.
Yeah,
so.
I will say I'm the kind of person that likes to leave my client open and just like wait for someone to invite me, and then in Smite 1, you get the ping like someone's invited you. Yeah. So that's like at least a playstyle that I know that I do that I would love to see, and I hope that there's people out there that also are the kind of people that are like, I'm doing something else, but like I'd be down to play some Smite if someone else wants to get in there and hang out and do some stuff like that. So that's something that I think would help out a lot too.
I know we're kind of at time now. This hour has flown by.
I know, right?
Thanks, chat, for listening. I do want to end with a little spoiler.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Because we're going to be looking probably at the character on Friday.
Let's do it.
So,
yeah.
The people have said, the next update is Donza Burrow and ? The other character in the update is going to be Hercules.
Yeah.
So Hercules will be in the next
go.
update along with Donza Burrow, and we'll be taking a look at his model on Friday. So it's kind of an update to the Herc you know and love, not drastically different, but like everything that we bring over into Smite 2, try and make it better. So I'm pretty excited about Herc. He's a character that you can play in solo and support.
Yeah,
iconic.
He's really iconic.
Has a very interesting new passive. So we'll have
we'll talk about that on Friday.
Yeah.
We can't spoil everything.
Yes.
There's going to be some nice changes, I will say.
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. But yeah, we'll be showing off gods on Friday. So thanks to Lermy for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Shout outs to Lermy for joining us. I'm going to go run after the show, after I hit in stream, check on the status of all the balance that we talked about at the top of the show. Should hopefully be live soon.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out on our social media channels for patch notes. We'll have those posted on Steam, social media, all that good stuff.
And if I could make one call out real quick, if you guys have more balance issues, make sure you post about them. I want to see it. I want to see what you guys think is OP, what's underpowered. I want to know what are general things that you miss from your items. What are things that you don't have enough of? Just general more thoughts on balance. I'd love to see it. Be as specific as you can. And yeah, that's what I'd like to see. I want you guys to talk about balance so that I can fix it for you.
Yes. Cool. All right. Well, chat, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I don't know about you all, but I love these Titan Talks. It's just so sick just being able to hang out with the community, answer questions, and chat about Smite 2 for an hour every other day. So until Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we will see you on the Battleground of the Gods. Peace out, chat. Take it easy.
Bye.